you know what? I actually was so cold and so miserable that I took a shower this morning because when I came home, I was so exhausted. I couldn't even run a bath or make myself get into the shower. I laid down for a couple of minutes. I like got under the blankets, like, okay, I just need a couple of minutes and then I can get going. Next thing I know, it's like 2 in the morning. So,
Out. So were the people nice that came up to you?
yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think if there was ever anybody. No, I mean, you know what? There was just nobody that was rude or anything like that. I always have my eyes open just in case on something like that, but nope. So far so good. I mean, and normally it's just people who listen, they want to say hello. There was a each person has their story. There's a really great former Marine who had a great story about a couple of the guys he served with, and they've taken their lives in the past year or so. And I saw him. I spent about half an hour talking with him, and then I saw him about an hour later, and he's like, I can't thank you enough. That was such a cathartic moment to just talk with you and get that stuff off my mind and off my chest. I haven't talked to anybody about it before, and I'm like, okay, well, that made it worthwhile going down there for the day.
Yeah, for sure. I talked to Max. He and his platoon are heading down to Camp Lejeune to do the helicopter dunker.
Right.
It's not fun. They strap you into like several people into this framework of a helicopter and dunk you upside down in the water, and you have to swim out.
That uh so it's a simulates your getting inserted by a helicopter gets shot, goes down into the drink, it's upside down.
Yep.
You got to remain calm, unloose all of your straps and get to the surface.
Yep. Scary. That's
That
what I want to do right now.
right. I didn't have to do that. I went out and I trained with the Marines, with the SEALs actually, when I was in television for a week. And we didn't have to do that. But we did do a thing, those little Zodiac boats that they use. Well, we did a thing on training for them. And the way it works is they take you out and then they flip the boat. And so you end up trapped underneath the boat. And then you're supposed to be able to get the boat righted and then get back into it and, get back into shore. um, I was under that boat for a long time, and you lose track of time when you're the person under it. I am glad that I, was able to keep fairly calm, but the people on shore were pretty freaked out about how long it was that I hadn't come out. But the bad thing is they're so far away from where this is taking place, and there's like one instructor on the boat. So I don't if I mean if I got entangled in something, or I don't know what. I mean, just doing what they're doing with that helicopter thing, that in and of itself is dangerous.
No, yeah, I'm sure it is. But I think he did it before in Camp Pendleton. So,
Good.
but all of his unit has not done it. So, there's going to be anytime there's water, there's a natural tendency of people to panic a little bit.
I think so. They had us do a Navy thing where there's this big thing that simulates a sinking ship.
Mhm.
And so that exercise was you're given various positions and jobs, and you're supposed to try to minimize the flooding into the compartment that you're at. You have some timbers and all this other stuff you're supposed to use. And yet, the entire time you're working on that, the water, which is cold as hell, just keeps rising and rising and rising and rising. And fortunately, there they can tell, whose nostrils are above the water and when they need to shut it down. But and it was, we had like emergency lights on. I can't imagine what that would be like if you were truly just in the dark.
Mhm. Yeah, scary.
It's
I've been watching all the videos about the Bayesian, that big, luxury yacht that was a sailboat that got knocked down in a thunderstorm. went down in 16 seconds. And the billionaire and his daughter and two couples, his friends, were all killed.
Wow.
They think why they died, they didn't drown. They ran out of air down there. They were in it, but it was so black and so dark, they probably couldn't find their way out. It's horrible. So,
that is like the Russians had their top submarine, the Kursk,
oh,
go down and had an explosion up where the front torpedoes are at. And there's a big controversy as to whether it was one of their torpedoes that exploded. Did they actually have a collision with the U.S. Sub? Whatever. But the bottom line is, yeah, this huge explosion at the front, and yet the rear compartment was able to seal, and those guys lived for a couple of days till they ran out of oxygen.
can't imagine.
Man, there are a lot of ways. I'm sorry, this sounds so chicken, but if I'm in a situation like that, could you just guys provide me with like some sort of a little cyanide pill that when I say, you know what, this whole thing is freaking hopeless, I don't want to drown to death and I don't want to suffocate. So let me say a prayer, write a goodbye, because these guys actually were keeping notes to send to their families. It was sad. And the Russians refused help from other nations
Right.
because it was their newest top secret ship and they didn't want to give away any information. So, uh, if you ever get a chance, take a look at it. It's the Kursk, Kursk, and it was named after that region of Russia that Ukraine and Russia are fighting so much about right now, because that had
Yeah,
been
to this
a
day,
huge.
they're fighting over Kursk, right?
Yeah, and in part because Ukraine knew that that had been a big source of pride when the Russians defeated the Germans at Kursk. It was the largest tank battle ever, and so it's a matter of pride. So, oh yeah, let's go take back part of part of your country that was the source of pride. So, in any event, all right, I got a clock, I got a script.
So I have a question for you on this first topic before we get into it.
Yeah,
It's about having extended family members living with you.
right,
And I know you yourself have experienced that, but I don't want to bring up anything personal if you don't want to talk about it.
right.
So you're free to make commentary on it if you want.
I'm happy to talk about it. I mean,
Okay.
it's just it's a part of life. In fact, we're just a little bit unique with this situation because it was her parents both moved in, but after my mom died, my dad sold his house and he never owned another house in his life. He just shuttled from one child to another, to another, to another, and
Yeah.
made the rounds. He'd stay 6 months here, 4 months there, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's fairly common. Yeah. No, no, and I respect you asking that. Yep, we're good.
Yeah. I just didn't want to get into your personal life and go, oh, I know you've done it, Richard.
Appreciate that a lot. Okay. Now I think I'm ready. David, you ready? David's ready. Barb, you ready?
I'm ready.
Born ready. Count us down in three, two, one. Hi, I'm Richard Randall, and welcome to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the host of the program and the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. This is the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Colorado's real estate authority. That is Barb Schlinker. Barb Schlinker is a retired Navy veteran. Barb is an author. Barb's also a pilot, and Barb Schlinker and her team enjoy all that Colorado and the Front Range have to offer. Barb, always great to be talking with you. Now, we air Your Real Estate Voice every Saturday, and if you can't listen to the entire show, it is always available on Barb's site, barbhasthebuyers.com, or just go ahead and search for the podcast on iHeartRadio, plus all of the other platforms. Every week, your real estate voice covers great information about the housing market and one of the largest assets most people have, their home. Barb, what are we covering today?
Well, Richard, I'm excited about today's show. We have a couple of different topics that we haven't really approached before. One of them is, what are the pros and cons of living with extended family members in Colorado? In my business, I'm running across more and more people that either are having their folks move in with them or they have adult kids with them. And we're going to talk about that and kind of um, the growth in that industry, actually, believe it or not. So it's pretty good to have a floor plan that has that capability of multi-generational, but it's also a growing trend in Colorado. So we'll discuss that. And then the next topic we're going to cover is, are home inspectors liable for damage when they're inspecting your home? So we're going to talk about that. And then the next topic would be, why would a home seller accept backup offers once their home goes under contract? So we'll talk about how backup offers work and why they would be used by a home seller or a buyer. And then the last topic is how to choose how to choose the right realtor when selling your Colorado house. And as always, I love talking about my hot new listings. Richard?
So, Barb, many more people are choosing to have their parents or in laws move in with them to care for them. Why is that trend increasing here in Colorado?
Well, I think it's actually increasing all over the country. And a lot of it has to do with housing, the cost of housing right now. But some of it also has to do with the cost of, like, if you're going to have parents or grandparents move in with you, the cost of senior care in those facilities is really expensive. I think the lowest price I've seen recently is over $5,000 a month. So if you don't set yourself up from the beginning to be prepared for that, there's a lot of people that just can't afford the senior care and they end up relying on family members to help them. Also, it's very nice to have a family member overseeing your care as well. I know from my own experience, when my folks were towards the end of their lives, it became very intense. It became a full-time job for me to oversee their care and make sure everything was going as expected. Some of the caregivers that were handling them didn't give them their medication in a timely manner. Some of those things happened that really drove me nuts, but I think at the end of the day, for them, it's a job. For me, it's family, and I'm going to do everything I can to help them. And I think that's true for a lot of people that are ending up in a situation where they have multi-generations living with them. And so there could be financial benefits. Some of the financial benefits would be keeping the costs down. That's one thing. The other benefit is that there are some families that actually have adult kids living with them at the same time, having to take care of a more senior generation. They call it the sandwich generation that has to help both. And a lot of it has to do with the cost of housing. You wouldn't believe how many people I meet that tell me their adult kids are living with them because they don't make enough money just to be able to rent a house in this area, which is kind of crazy right now, but that's what's going on. And I looked at a couple of different studies online about why this type of thing, multi-generational housing, has quadrupled since 1971. And this data is only since 2021. After 2021, that's when the interest rates went up. That's when housing got really expensive for home buyers. And I would think that there's going to be a big surge in that going forward. I read another story from the National Association of Realtors. It's a little bit more recent, and it saw a huge surge between 2022 and 2024 of homes purchased for the purpose of housing a multi-generational family. So it's a big trend right now. I helped one family move from their small two-story home to a multi-generational home where there was a main level bedroom, a main level shower at the very least, and it had the master upstairs. And I think the builders are really smart to come up with those floor plans right now because it's a growing trend. It's a cost savings for the family. It's a cost savings for the seniors. A lot of times, if you have adult kids living with you, it's a cost savings for them. And it kind of offsets both the high cost of housing as well as the high cost of senior care. And one of the things that was somewhat interesting to me is, why they are doing it. What's the situation? So across the board, there's a 77% increase in this type of housing. The reasons are, number one is cost savings. Number two is basically taking care of aging parents. Number three, and this is a big percentage, over 21%, is having adult children live with them for various reasons. Some of the kids are saddled with really expensive student loan debt, or the housing is just unaffordable for them. So there's lots of reasons for it happening, but it is a growth industry right now. And, there's an awful lot of buyers right now that are kind of holding off on buying homes because the interest rates have really gone up quite a bit as compared to the years between, say, 2019 and 2022. What we're seeing as of this morning when I checked, the 30-year fixed rate was over 7%. The VA and FHA rate creeped up over 6.5%. So if you can't handle the payment on that, two things are going to happen. Either the buyers are going to wait to buy and maybe save some money, or they're going to save extra money in order to buy down that interest rate to make the home more affordable. That is why it's really, really important, if you are thinking of selling a home, when you put your house on the market, you want to be the best home at the best price in the best condition. That's absolutely the way to get the most money. And I help buyers do that and sellers do that all the time. And, it's interesting to me how well educated the buyers are about the market. We just held an open house last weekend, and one of the buyers that came in there had been to another open house I had the weekend before. And I said, hey, I remember you. And what was interesting is he had studied all the pictures. He knew a little bit more about the house than I did, which was pretty impressive. So I think in general, if the buyers are in the market and they're looking for something, they're really paying attention. Does this home have value? Is it in the price that I want to spend on a home? Is it a good value for me? Is it in good enough condition that I can move in, drop my stuff, and get on with my life? They are very well educated about the market, probably even more so than many agents. And they know if it's a good buy or not. That's why it's absolutely critical when you hire somebody to help you sell the home, you want to position it to be the best home on the market. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of this show, Your Real Estate Voice. And we're talking about the pros and cons of multi-generational living with extended family members. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the downside of living with extended family members. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call. We give a free in-home consultation on what to do, what not to do to get your house ready for sale. We will show up with at least 100 of our own buyers on our own websites that are a high match for your home. Plus, we can find another 700 using our resources. And we show up with multiple cash offers. So give us a call. It's a free consultation at 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
Now, Barb, we're talking about the pros and the cons of living with extended family members. So let's start here. What are the issues that arise from living with extended family?
Well, Richard, I think probably one of the most common things would be it's course of a disruption of your normal lifestyle. I know you've experienced it before. My mother-in-law is living with my sister-in-law, and it's a little tough on them. It does interfere with your privacy, but I don't know what your experience was. Theirs is going really, really well. but they also have to focus on her care at the same time. How was it for you?
Well, I think it went as well as you could expect, and I think the saving grace is that most people, whether it's their parents or their in-laws, they just want them to have the best life they can. Now, sometimes that might be an assisted living, many times it's not. And for us, it was just a matter of changing around priorities. We didn't take big long trips. You have to watch for people a little bit more. You make sure the newspaper gets to them so that they can read it. A lot of small things, but I believe that it is probably a wave of the future, especially when you start talking about $5,000 a month for assisted care. There's a huge difference.
Yeah, that's minimum. I mean, I've heard it a lot higher than that. In fact, there's some facilities where it's like an investment, like almost like buying a condo, where you give them a huge amount of money up front, and then you still have to make that payment. But there's some benefits to it. There's pros and cons on everything. But at the end of the day, it's really interesting to me how often this is happening. Now, my mother-in-law is 95. She's perfectly healthy. She's in a two-story. She goes up and down stairs every day. Her only issue is she has a little bit of hearing, but she mops floors. She helps clean up after the dogs. She's doing fine. She's not going to need to be in a senior care unless she just wants to be. But she's doing really well. And sometimes she does bounce around the country to hang out with the other siblings, which is a great thing, I think, for her to get out and enjoy it. So who is actually doing this? It's in generally people that are aged between 45 and 77. And about a third of them actually have an adult child living with them. And it's really interesting to see the growth in this industry. So if you have a home that fits that niche of being multi-generational, it makes it highly desirable. People really like it because they want to help their parents, like you said, and they want them to have a good life until it's time to move on to the next thing. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call. We will sit down with you, give you a really good idea what to do and what not to do to get your house ready for sale. We'll go over all the closing costs, show you how much you'll put in your pocket when it sells, and also show up with cash offers. So just call us at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker. She is your real estate voice. She's with Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty. And if you're thinking about making a move, call Barb 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking about how you should prepare your home before selling it. Stay tuned for that.
Yeah, that's not the script.
No,
I
okay.
don't know what happened.
All right.
It should be, our home inspectors liable for damages while
There,
inspecting?
okay.
I don't know. Anyway,
I got, you know what? Part of the problem is I got my scripts a little bit out of order here. God, talk about a great topic. Okay, here, I've got it ready. 3, 2, 1. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about home inspectors. Are they liable for damage that incurs while they're inspecting homes here in Colorado? Barb has the answer.
I have to
Yeah,
have my
that
sassy segment.
sandwich. I'm sorry, go ahead, Barb.
I have to have my sassy segment.
Well, of course, it wouldn't be you without that. I actually took a couple of photos of the script and sent it to my wife so she could see it. I'd never heard the term sandwich generation, but that's exactly what we are, taking care
Yeah.
of people who are younger, who are still in school, and taking care of a parent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to have our son at home, but I don't think it's what he wants.
Right.
He wants to be on his own.
Well, and I should say they're not at home. I mean, they're at home a lot, but one lives in Denver, the other lives in Omaha. And this is the first year where they've been out of the house completely, living other places. I mean, they were for college, but um it's I don't know. There's a whole thing that fascinates me about how other cultures handle all of this. And I don't really know, the details on that. I do know that you put your finger on when it's almost 17%, almost 20% of the folks out there. And I hadn't thought about it, but you got a home that matches up with this kind of thing, whether it's floor plan or whatever, that does make a home more
It makes it red
desirable.
hot.
That's why Barb Schlinker is Barb Schlinker. Okay. I'm ready to go whenever everybody else is.
Ready?
I'll count us down in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, your real estate voice and the owner broker of your home sold guaranteed realty. Now, Barb, many home sellers fear the inspection. Many people think that most buyers want to purchase their home as is. What are some of the things that home sellers have to watch out for during home inspections to make sure that there's not damage to the systems in their home?
Well, Richard, it's a pretty exciting process for me just because every week I have some kind of surprise happen, and it shouldn't be happening. In the state of Colorado, there is no license, there's no qualification. Home inspectors are not regulated at all. So I could be a home inspector. I've seen landscapers inspect my listings. I've seen the daddy of the buyer inspect my listings. I don't know how qualified they are or not, but at the end of the day, stuff happens. So their job is to come in and evaluate the systems of the house and determine whether or not anything is broken so the buyer can ask for repairs. That's essentially their mission. And through my years of experience, I've seen some crazy stuff take place. I had one inspector out in Peyton on a well property that basically turned on every single faucet inside and outside of the house and ran it for 4 hours. Now, this home had a well. So, guess what happened? They ran the well dry. They ended up sucking sand up through the well pump into the plumbing fixtures. And then I get a text from the seller going, "Why is there sand in my sink?" I'm like, "Oh no," I knew exactly what happened. And so I've had inspectors, break plumbing and cause flooding in the basement. I've had two of them actually stick their foot or their, stomp through inside the attic and break through the drywall into the house. I've had them pull toilets without permission. One of my favorite ones most recently. So the reason why they're pulling toilets is this started in 2018, where all of a sudden they decided that, well, we don't have termites, we don't have those problems. So let's just check the sewer line and make sure that the sewer line's intact, because that could be a system that could fail over time. Okay. So if they couldn't find a sewer clean out, which is a big 4-inch white pipe or black pipe, and it has this cap on it with a square looking screw, if they couldn't find it, I was finding initially the inspectors were going down toilets, down tubs, and with their little cameras and scratching these fixtures. Then they thought they got smart, and without permission, they started just removing toilets and running their sewer line down the hole for the toilet. The problem is they weren't trained, they weren't skilled enough to reseat the toilet. So they cause leaks. I had one just a few weeks ago, even though he was told in my instructions, do not pull a toilet unless you have a licensed plumber in place. What he did was, it was down in the basement. He pulled the mat over. It was like a silicone tub mat to protect his knees. And then when he reseated the toilet, the mat was stuck underneath the toilet. And so, we get the inspection objection where the buyer asked for the missing toilet to be installed. And we're like, the seller's like, well, that's kind of funny because I think I've been using that toilet. So he went down to check it and he sent us a picture of this bath mat stuck underneath the rim of the toilet because the guy didn't properly reseat it. That's the kind of crazy stuff that takes place on a regular basis. Just in the past 2 weeks, I had inspectors check the sewer line by going through the roof vent. Now, I'm not a plumber, I don't know, Richard. What do you think about that? You go up to the roof to check the sewer line.
I'm not a plumber either. It seems to me that we're now at the point where, for some of these inspections, they're doing things to justify their job as opposed to looking for legitimate problems that just might be there.
Right. And this was a house that has a brand new sewer line that had sewer cleanouts. It's like, why didn't you go the proper way? Why do you have to crawl up on the roof and run these pipes all the way through the entire plumbing system? It's just insanity happens on a regular basis. Just a few weeks ago, um, after the inspection, the seller said, well, we were told tomorrow, this is right after the inspection, they're going to come and dig holes in the yard to check the sewer line. I'm like, whoa, stop, hold on. They don't have permission to do. Where is that coming from? So I asked the agent, and I said, who checked the sewer line? Did you pull a toilet to do that? He goes, no, we brought in a sewer excavation company. I'm like, what? Guess what sewer excavation companies do? They excavate to fix sewer lines. So why would you bring somebody like that to an inspection to check a sewer line? It made no sense to me. It seemed like a complete conflict of interest. Of course, they're going to say the sewer line's broken because they're in the business of selling new sewer lines. It just, anyway, that's those kind of things happen on a weekly basis. Now, the objective of the inspection is to confirm that the home systems are functioning properly. However, the seller, in the contract, it says the words, the home is sold as is, where is, with all its faults. Now, they can inspect anything that they want, but they have to do it properly. And inspection is not really designed to tear apart the house to see everything that you could see. So most home sellers assume their home is being sold as is, but the inspectors come in, they look for problems, and then many times the buyers start asking for new stuff, upgrades to things that weren't already installed in the house. So there's all kinds of things that come under scrutiny for an inspection. They're going to check all kinds of stuff. They're going to check the sewer lines. They're going to check the furnace. They're going to check septic systems. They will look as far and wide as they can to find issues. However, it's still a point of negotiation. So once a seller accepts a contract, it's not a done deal yet. The buyer still has to do their inspection. They may ask for repairs, and then you're negotiating again, and then they do an appraisal. The appraiser may ask for repairs. Then you're negotiating one more time till you finally get to the finish line. So it's a little crazy, but the question is, if the inspector does any kind of damage, who's responsible for it? Well, actually, at the end of the day, it's the buyer. That's what it says in the contract. They can inspect anything they want, but if they break something, the buyer is responsible. So really the only leverage a home seller has at that point, if like that one situation where they ran the well dry, the inspector actually talked the buyer out of buying the house. So the buyer's like, we're out, we're terminating, give us our earnest money. And I said, hold on, Tiger, we need to see what kind of damage you did to the well pump and the plumbing fixtures by sucking the well dry and pulling up sand through all those systems. And we had to have it checked out first before we let that money go. They were lucky that it didn't get damaged, but crazy stuff happens all the time. And many times, if there is something like that happens, if we challenge the inspector, they won't admit it. Oh, it wasn't me. It was like that when I found it. So you can keep the buyer on the hook for just that, but you just have to really pay attention to what's going on. Electrical is another thing that gets checked a lot. There are certain things that are grandfathered in, like old electrical panels, GFCI circuits. I got an inspection objection last night where they asked for an upgrade to the water heater based on where it was. It was in a closet in the house. It's a 1960s house. So are you saying you want me to move the water heater? I don't get it. It was built like that. you can't, a buyer cannot go in and go, well, we want a new water heater and we want it somewhere else. Basically what it said is, well, the water heater overflow valve is there in a closet and it could scald somebody. I'm like, it's behind a closet door. You'd have to open the door and put your hand under that little overflow valve. It's like, who wrote that? I don't know. They drive me crazy every single week. So I have to help my sellers wade through all these issues. At the end of the day, what it says in the contract that any system that's working at the time of the contract is the seller responsibility to still be working at closing. So, okay, but that doesn't mean they get new stuff. So it's every single week I get really interesting challenges on the inspection, and you really need an experienced agent to help you through that system. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of this show. And we're talking about basically, are home inspectors liable for any damage that they do in the house? And how do you actually avoid contract failures at the inspection phase? And the best solution to pass your inspection is coming up next. Richard?
You're listening to Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And if you're interested in selling your home, give Barb a call, 719-301-3900. And we're talking, Barb, about how to avoid those red flags on home inspections for sellers. Barb, what are some other home inspection issues that you've seen come up in your career?
Well, Richard, in general, you want to get ahead of certain things. I would say probably 1 to 2 out of every 4 listings I take have some kind of roof problem because hail damage is so prevalent here. So you really want time to negotiate with the insurance company, with a roofer to get the best deal. You don't want to wait until you're under contract and under a 3-week gun in order to get it finished and get to closing. That's just too much stress for people. Other things that you should take a look at, if you have a wood deck, wood really takes quite a bit of beating in this climate. You want to make sure that you're very familiar with your systems. And if you have any systems that are unique, you want to be there for the inspection. The inspectors and the agents will actually try to kick you out of your own home for the inspection. Would you like that, Richard?
No, I most certainly would not want that, especially if they wanted me gone and they expected me to leave, a teenage daughter or somebody behind while they're there.
Right. I've even had them, I've had buyer's agents ask me, this still goes on every week. Can't you just give out the combo to the inspector, this unlicensed inspector, and let him in the house for 3 hours and just go at all the systems? We'll see the report afterwards. And the answer is no. You better be there. You better be there for the whole entire time. And I have actually caught agents opening the lockbox, letting the inspector in and leaving. So that won't happen on my watch because we're checking them. So you want to make sure you have somebody that actually has your back when it comes to inspection, because all kinds of crazy stuff can happen. If you would like to find out more about inspections, we have this free report called The 11 Things You Need to Know to Pass Your Inspection. You can download that report if you go to barbhasthebuyers.com and click on the green button free reports, or give us a call 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to Barb Schlinker of Your Real Estate. You're listening to Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And if you're thinking of making a move, call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing why would a home seller accept backup offers. Barb will explain that.
All
All right.
right. A little bit sassy there. Was I kind enough or was I mean?
Think you could take it up a notch? I just wonder how many of these buyers would let the cable guy run amok in their house, while they're working,
Right.
because it's essentially the same thing. You're opening your home up and saying, yeah, just kind of walk around and just do this, okay?
Yeah, just check everything out,
Don't mess anything up. Just check my cable and make sure that works.
craziness. I'm telling you.
Chances are they're going to use the restroom or something else other than just fix the appliance or whatever is broken.
I just don't think I think the agents want to abdicate the whole entire process. That's my issue, is they don't want to be there. They want to write a 10-minute contract, maybe open the door, although they don't all show the house. I end up showing the house at the open houses, and then they want all that money, but they don't want to work for it. So immediately, right out of the gate, I'll get emails from the agent going, oh, please send all communication to my transaction coordinator. I'm like, no. You can give them access to your file. I'm
Yeah,
not playing
you
that
can
game.
forward that
Yes.
just as well as I can.
Yeah, I'm not your admin fiance, dear. Sorry.
Uh,
I don't know a tactful way to say it, but I basically said, no, you can share your file with your TC. That's not going to be my admin job.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, I'm not your secretary.
That's right. That's what they treat me like.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to ask the listing agent to do it. We don't want to do anything.
There are a lot of people who seem to be more than willing to try to get you to do all kinds of things.
Yeah, ain't gonna happen. They also bug me after business hours. They're the worst abusers of it. You know, I if something's coming up with my clients, I don't mind talking to my clients after business hours. I really mind agents asking stupid questions after business hours. I got all through last weekend, 3-day weekend, nonstop. Well, I tried to reach you. You didn't answer me. I'm like, you're right. I'm not. It's a holiday and I'm not going to. So
I think it's sad to say, but I think it's a reflection of, I don't know how it gets this way. Maybe as a parent, I did too much stuff for my kids or something instead of, forcing them to do everything by themselves. I don't think that's it, but you know what? It could be. There's
I
every
think part of it
person.
is if they're only selling a few houses a year,
Yeah.
this is their one deal. You know, it's a real estate emergency.
Yes.
They
Yes.
do not care about, you know, being respectful of my time.
I wonder if these same people complain about Chick-fil-A being closed on Sunday.
Right.
Probably.
I will say one thing, I emphasize over and over and over again your experience, how many times you've dealt with people that this is, it's not new to you. And especially how many homes you've sold, because, and we've talked about it a couple of times on the show, but I use it during the commercials a lot. And that is, you can't simply ask somebody how long you've been doing this. You've been doing it for 10 years. How many homes have you sold? Oh, you sold one home per year?
Yeah. That's those are the people that serve on committees and judge you.
Oh, she
If
might.
there's an ethics complaint, we're gonna judge.
Seriously? Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is sad. That's scary.
One of my colleagues calls them 30 in 30 agents, 30 sales in 30 years.
That's about it.
Maybe it's 28. The first 2 years they didn't sell any.
Well, and that's why I emphasize it all the time. I try to emphasize that, maybe they're not looking for a home right now, but you work with somebody, somebody's in your family, your church, or whatever. but then it is just so dramatic. I think a light bulb goes off over their heads the way it did the first time you ever mentioned this to me is, yeah, it sounds impressive. I've been in real estate for about 10 years. And so how many, one per year? So that's 10. So Barb Schlinker has sold 10, 20 times as many in 1 year as you have in 10 years. Really?
I think, I think it's hard. It's a hard industry to get business. I think that's the biggest lie about the industry is that the brokers don't really teach agents how to do it. They don't know. So they're like, here, go figure it out. Go sink or swim. That's what they all have to go through. That's what I had to go through.
It's a
But,
tough deal.
at the end of the day, the consumer doesn't know. They just think, oh, well, if you've got 10 years in the business, you must, have tons of experience. And it's not true.
Well,
Everybody's
and I tell
experienced.
people, you don't want somebody learning on the job when it's your home, biggest
Yeah.
investment in your life. So,
Yeah.
all right, I got a clock. I got number 3. David is smiling. Barbie, good.
I'm ready.
I count us down. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, when home sellers put their home on the market, many are expecting activity right away. Should home sellers hold out for the best offers or even multiple offers or backup offers when they're selling a house?
Well, Richard, I get that question a lot. They're like, okay, so I've got showings going on and I've got this offer in front of me. Should I wait for another offer? And these offers have a time deadline. If you don't respond by the time, technically the deal is dead. And a lot of times they come in on the weekends because that's when buyers are out looking at homes. And, people don't sell homes very often. And I try to manage expectations and tell people, hey, I don't know if the seller's out of town this weekend. I'll do my best to try to reach them. But if they are, you're going to have to wait. Will you give me more time to present the offer? I had 2 last weekend where their deadlines happen before the end of the holiday weekend. So I had to process those sales for the clients. But at the end of the day, people don't sell homes very often. And there's no way of knowing for sure if you're going to get multiple offers. But there are some clues that I'll be talking about here and how you can kind of get a feel for whether or not you might have a chance of getting multiple offers. And not all real estate agents actually know how to position a home to get multiple offers. If you do have multiple offers as a home seller, you're definitely in the driver's seat because you get to pick the best one. You get to play one against the other to get the most money. It's a lot of fun, but there are definitely clues that indicate whether or not you're going to get more than one. First of all, typically if there's other agents involved, they will actually typically reach, not all the time, but usually they'll reach out to me and say, hey, I have a buyer bringing an offer. Are there going to be any other offers, right? Or they'll put it in their feedback that the buyers are considering an offer. Now, I always get nervous about sharing that information with the seller because sometimes it doesn't happen. There are times when a buyer will say, oh, I want to make an offer on that house. And then just like squirrel, they get distracted somewhere else and go, oh, maybe I'll buy this one instead, where the agent has already promised an offer. You're telling the seller there's an offer coming in and then it doesn't happen. So I don't like to disappoint. Usually I'll wait until I have it in my hands and then it's real. But the first clue is a reflection of the volume of calls that you're getting about the property, the volume of showings, that kind of thing. So how many showings are normal? So I looked at the statistics. Actually, the showing service has these, and I checked in all different prices between 200 up to almost $1 million. And the numbers were fairly consistent. It was between 6 and 8 showings is considered the average number of showings per week. If you're getting less than that, there's a couple of problems. Price is too high. Maybe the home is not being marketed right. Maybe it's just not the right home. I don't know. But it's either pricing, marketing, or it's both. So that's a clue. One of them is the number of showings. And then if you're not getting very many showings, is it time to make a change in price? Not necessarily. Some people will wait out the process and eventually they will get an offer. But if it goes too long and the showings drop off, you got a problem. Generally, you can tell in the first 30 days if you're on track based on the volume of showings and the activity. Although I will say for most home sellers, it's just not fun to do that, especially if you live in the home, to have to leave for every showing, wait for it to happen, get back, and you're wondering what they did in the house and all that. So I recently had a home seller where they were getting a really good volume of showings. We had a really good turnout at the open house as well. And we finally got one offer. And that was the question. Should I wait around for another offer? And I'm like, you know, if you don't have one in front of you and it's something that you'll accept, I would just work with the one that you have. You can always accept a backup offer after the fact. And this happened on another property about 2 weeks ago. We had a great turnout at the open house. Within that day, we got an offer. We negotiated, put it under contract in a day or so. And then the following weekend, I held another open house at a different property, similar price range. And here comes two of the agents that were at the other open house telling me, well, my buyer wanted that house, but they weren't ready yet. Either they weren't qualified yet or something, weren't quite ready to make an offer. So that begs the question, how many showings are done with agents that don't know if their buyers are ready to make an offer? I would think it's probably more than you think. And that's not what the home seller's thinking. The home seller's thinking, well, everybody showing my home must be fully qualified to buy a home, and they want a home like that. And the fact is, I would say it's less than half the time that that's really true. Many agents use the opportunity to meet a buyer as a way of showing homes. Richard, did you know that Zillow will sell zip codes? They will sell buyer leads in their zip codes. And the reason they do that, that's how they become a billion-dollar company, is basically they built a better MLS mousetrap than all the MLSs put together. They presented it. They are always page one on Google. And that's where the buyers, it's one of the top sites where the buyers go to look for homes. So the buyers raise their hand and they say, hey, I want to see that home. So what Zillow does is they sell these buyer leads to real estate agents that pay for zip codes. Per zip code, to just get a small percentage of those leads, it could cost as much as $4,000 a month. That is just to be connected with a maybe buyer. And the first meeting is at the house. They don't know if they can buy a couch on Craigslist. They don't know what the buyer is looking for. They're just trying to get FaceTime with the buyer so they can maybe make money. So that is kind of how it works these days. And it can be very disappointing. It could be that the number of showings are a little bit misleading about really the demand. But if you are in the unique position where you've accepted an offer and somebody else still wants the house and is willing to make a backup offer, it's a good thing for you. Kind of the way it works is once you accept a contract, you can't get rid of that buyer. You have to wait out the process unless they blow up their own deal with asking for too many repairs on inspection and you don't reach agreement, or maybe they don't qualify for the loan, or maybe the inspector comes along and says, oh, well, the house doesn't qualify. Mr. Seller, you have to do the repairs so the buyer can get their loan. That could be a point of contention as well that would open the door for a backup buyer to get the house. And the way it works is you have to give that buyer first position until the number one buyer defeats their own contract. But it also helps the seller. We're going to talk about it in the next half of the segment about how a backup offer can really be a benefit to you, because it gives the seller leverage to say, all right, Mr. Buyer, if you ask for too many repairs and fries with that too, we might just not reach agreement. And unless you withdraw your objection, we may pivot to this other buyer that we have in our hot little hand. So we're talking about how a backup offer works and why would a home seller accept it. And when we're going to come back, we're going to talk about some of the benefits and some of the downside and some stories about backup offers. If you are thinking of making a move, give us a call, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. She is your voice, and you can reach her at 719-301-3900. And we're talking, Barb, about whether a home seller should consider a backup offer and how it may help them. What are some other reasons to accept a backup offer, and what can be done on the downside of it?
Well, Richard, I call it the heir and the spare. I mean, basically, you've got one buyer that you have a contract on, but then you've got this backup buyer that wants the house. And if the contract is fully executed with the first and the second buyer, it means if buyer number one defeats their contract somehow, buyer number two automatically moves into first position. And we can actually use our cash offers to set that situation up for every home seller. That way you have the certainty that you know the deal is going to go through. The downside of accepting a backup offer, though, is that if buyer number two made an offer and they're sitting as the spare, the buyer in waiting to get the house, and weeks go by, you go past the inspection, you might come up on the appraisal, and then all of a sudden buyer number one blows up the contract, you call buyer number two, it could be that buyer number two moved on and said, nope, never mind. I've already wrote an offer on this other house, so we're just going to skip that one. So that's the downside of it. Though I had it happen one time where a buyer made an offer. In that case, the seller their plan for showing was basically to allow by appointment showings, which was fine. And the very first buyer that came in the door wanted the house. And we were trying to hold it back for a little bit of time, that in other words, we weren't going to look at offers till the following Monday. But the way the offer came in was, it was basically an ultimatum. If you don't accept our offer today, we are going to withdraw our offer. We're not going to wait until Monday. And the offer was very, very strong. It was way over asking price. So the seller took it. I said, but don't trust him. I'm not feeling good about it. So sure enough, the next buyer that looked at the home loved it too. They put in a backup offer, and then 3 weeks went by. 3 weeks go by, buyer number one suddenly decides they have a home to sell, and they gave us another ultimatum that said, if you don't give us an extension, and because our home sale contract blew up, we're going to terminate. And the seller's like, bye, have a nice day, because we've got this backup buyer. So I called the backup buyer's agent, and he was actually shocked. He goes, oh my gosh, this is their dream home, and they have been shopping for other homes, but weren't able to get a contract on another home. So they were thrilled that they got the house, and buyer number one did not. So this is part of what we do. We sit down with home sellers, we give them options, and we give them certainty. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call at 719-301-3900. We can help you sell your home. We can even help other buyers that are coming to you that have a house to sell. We can help sell their home so they can buy yours without a contingency. Give us a call. We'll sit down and discuss all of this at 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
Barb, I want people to know that you and your team are the only company that I'd recommend to people out there who are thinking of selling their homes and downsizing to a smaller home. They can get that information at 719-301-3900. A reminder, you're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. She is your real estate voice. And if you're thinking about making a move, 719-301-3900, a short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing how to choose the right realtor when you're selling a Colorado home, plus Barb's hot new listings. Don't miss that. All right.
That was a new topic.
I liked it.
Did I explain it well enough?
No, you did. I mean, that's one thing I have to give you credit, because if you just said, well, Richard, I'm going to send you a script. Could you just go through that and narrow it down for me? I would say, Barb, I don't have a damn, I seriously wouldn't. I don't know how you condense all this stuff.
Well, I didn't follow the script at all, but
Well,
it's like an outline.
we don't mail our money to the Swiss bank based on you following your script, fortunately. You know what? Here's the true confession. So we first started doing this. I'd be looking through the script, and all of a sudden, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I took my eye off of this thing for 1 second, and then I'm thumbing through all of them, going, okay, it's not there, it's not there. And then I'm like, go back to the beginning and thumb through again, trying to find it. And then I realized that you were just ad-libbing, but you knew what you were doing, and you come back to it. So I've grown accustomed to it. And I think it sounds, you know what? It sounds like you're just talking. The other way, it just sounds like sometimes you're just reading something and that's
Yeah.
not compelling. So I like the way you do it, is I guess what I'm saying.
Thank you.
All right. I got a new one. You ready to go, Barb?
Yeah.
Count us down. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, you know that I've recommended you and your team for years, but many people put very little planning and thought into picking the real estate agent to handle one of their largest assets. It's usually the home or maybe a 401k. You take care of that home equation. Barb, how do home sellers choose the very best agent when they're selling that important asset, their home?
Well, Richard, not all real estate agents are the same. Everybody has different experiences, different backgrounds, different training. And, it's surprising to me, but the real estate industry has absolutely no how to be a real estate agent or how to sell a house or how to help somebody buy a house. There is very little effective training on it. And so most agents just kind of copy each other and, sort of follow what everybody else is doing, which some things could be good and some things could be bad. But for a home seller, picking the wrong agent can absolutely cost you thousands of dollars. And a lot of people, when they're talking to agents, they have no idea what to ask. Here are the hard facts. Most people only talk to one agent before they decide to sell their home. 80 more than 80% of the agents out there sell 3 or less homes a year, and half of the agents out there in the Pikes Peak region, there's like 6,300. In the Denver, it's probably 30,000. The numbers are still the same. Half of them don't sell any, and the other half sell 3 or less homes a year. And so if you look at the number of sales per month, just use El Paso County because I'm more familiar with it. Typically in the Pikes Peak region, there might be anywhere from 700 to 1,200 sales a month, but there's 6,300 agents. And many times some of the agents are coming down from Denver to sell homes from here. So there's probably more than that. That means that 1 out of 6 agents every month is probably not going to have a paycheck, right? And what I'm finding in my own practice when I'm working with other agents is that oftentimes they want to communicate with me after business hours, after 5:30 p.m., late at night, on the weekends. Very rarely do they call me during business hours. And I'm convinced most of them have another job. That's the truth. So that would be number one question for me is this your full-time position? Are you a full-time agent or is this an occasional gig for you? So some of the things that you want to watch out for when you're selecting an agent, don't get lulled into the agent that comes in and says, oh, I know I can get you, 1.5 million for your home and it's not worth that much. Sometimes the automated values are off. They could be off by as much as 100, 200. I've seen them hundreds of thousands of dollars off in the automated values. But then if an agent comes in and says, well, I can get you more money, that's a trap. What they're trying to do is get you to sign on the dotted line. Then they put your house on the market. Then they let the other agents be the bad guy, saying, oh, well, when I showed, the buyer thought it was overpriced. So then they start beating you up on pricing to lower the home price until it sells. I helped a home seller last fall that had hired somebody that really didn't specialize in selling homes. That person specialized in property management, and they did all the things wrong. They overpriced the home. They slowly walked the price down. 110 days later, they had awful pictures. The seller, who was out of the country at the time, a military guy, and his family actually spent the money. It was a beautiful vacant home in Peyton. He spent the money to bring in staging furniture for a couple of months. Just so you know how much that cost. It runs anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 a month to bring in staging furniture, and it still didn't sell the home. The reason was, A, it was priced too high, and B, the online presentation was awful. The agent was too cheap to spend a couple $100s to take professional photos and highlight the best part of the home, and therefore it didn't sell. So they hired me. Right away, we got the right pictures. We went right back on the market. We had 40 people at the open house. We got an offer right away. Seller rejected that because it was contingent and it didn't seem like it was going to go through. 9 days later, full price, close in 2 weeks, done. So there are agents that know how to do it, and there's agents that don't. And so you really have to be very, very careful about who you let handle one of the largest assets that you own. Go ahead and ask them how many homes that they have sold. It's a very awkward question for most real estate agents. You know, you say, well, how many homes have you sold this month? How many have you sold in this area? Have you ever sold in this area? Do you know this area? Those are really good questions. Also, ask them what they know about negotiating. A lot of people ask the commission question, which is a valid question. But at the end of the day, the best question is, how are you going to get me the most money when I sell my home? What is your marketing strategy? That is something a home seller absolutely needs to know. There are agents out there that will put your home in the MLS for a few $100. And if you think you're great at marketing and you can do it yourself, okay, fine. That might be okay for you, but it may not work as well. So you really want to know what is it going to take to get all the stars aligned so that you create proper demand and get the most money when you sell your home. And we actually have some reports that you can get from my website for free. If you go to barbhasthebuyers.com, we have 3 reports. One of them is real estate selection factors, questions that you should ask with the answers about your selection criteria, and the 13 top questions that you should ask before you sign on the dotted line to sell your home. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of this show. And we're talking about how to choose the right realtor when selling your Colorado house. Next up, I'm going to give you some interview questions that real estate agents would rather you not ask, and also some questions that you should be asking along with our own performance guarantees. If you are thinking of making a move, we'd love to be one of those ones that you call. Give us a call at 719-301-3900. Or if you're not ready right now, you can download the 10 questions you should ask before you hire an agent at barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
We're talking, Barb, about giving the audience information so they can find the best agent to sell their home. We're talking, Barb, about giving the audience information so they can find the best agent to sell their house. What are some other questions that a home seller should be asking when they're hiring a real estate agent?
Well, I think one of the questions you should ask is, how many buyers are you working with? There are some agents that say, oh, I have a buyer, right? A buyer that would be interested. And the question is, okay, that's great. You know, when are you going to bring them over? You know, that kind of thing. Maybe you could just do an agreement for one day for that buyer. You could do that. Another good question is, how likely is your company going to bring buyers through my home? See, what most agents do is what I call post and hope. They stick it on the MLS and hope and pray somebody else has another buyer. Another great question is, Are the buyers that you're bringing through my home, do you know that they're qualified to buy it? Are you just one of those agents that shows up at the door, introduces themselves, opens the door, and hope and prays that maybe they can buy a house and they're looking for a house like that? And then another great question that's a little bit of an awkward moment for most real estate agents is, what happens if I'm not happy with the job that you're doing? Can I cancel my contract? You know, that's a very good question. With some agents, the cancellation clause comes with expenses. I had one a few years ago where they canceled their listing because it wasn't really working, and the agent actually charged them $3,000. Now, I don't know if that was already in their agreement, but they had failed at the process. So I'm like, okay, well, if you're paying for that, part of that might have been the pictures. Did you ask for the pictures? And they said, oh no, we're not giving you the pictures. That was for all the services that we provided, which was nothing. It didn't result in a sale. It was a fail. So that's a very good question is, if I cancel my contract, can I cancel and will it cost me any money? And then many home sellers actually do feel kind of stuck in a long-term contract, but there are provisions built into the state form that give you an out. That's why you have to be very, very careful about the questions that you're asking. Like the state form doesn't say anything about a marketing plan. It doesn't provide any guarantees. It doesn't provide any promises. All it does is tie the agent to you exclusively. So I would ask those questions for sure. We have 6 satisfaction guarantees that we put in writing for our clients. We have a buyer in waiting guarantee. We have an honest promise guarantee. We have a communication guarantee. We have a home sale guarantee and a cancellation guarantee. That's just some of them. We also will guarantee 100% of market value, or we'll pay you the difference. So if you want to find out how that works, give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. You should be asking those hard questions because it's one of your largest assets. Just give us a call or download our free report on how to select a real estate agent at barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
Barb Schlinker, you are the only agent that I recommend when people are thinking about making a move. Remember, you're listening to Your Real Estate Voice, and Barb Schlinker is your real estate voice, the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Barb, it's time for your hot new listings. You love this. I do, and the listeners do as well. What do you have this week?
I do. I have a really cool home that's up in Woodland Park. It's very close to the hospital, great location, gorgeous views, priced in the low threes. I have another great home out in Peyton in the mid fives on Alta Plaza. I have a gorgeous home owned by the VA on 35 acres on Storybook Lane, priced in the low fours. I have a beautiful home in Briargate on Camfield. This home just got brand new plumbing. It has gleaming hardwood floors, great views, and a great location. Fabulous duplex actually up in Cripple Creek at 292. This home is halfway rented and the other part is vacant. So you could live in it and get the tenant to pay probably half of the cost of your mortgage. I have a spectacular home on 1240 Big Valley Drive in Rock Rimmon, priced at $725. This home has a detached ultimate man cave garage that has a lift and a heated system with an office and everything. So you would enjoy that. A fabulous home down in Pueblo, gorgeous ranch over 3,000 square feet on 9 Royal True in the mid to upper fives. If you are an investor, you might want to take a look at this fantastic fourplex in Holland Park at 589 on Forest Hill Drive, a stunning home down in Broadmoor Bluffs at 685 that actually backs to a big piece of land that's owned by NORAD, a spectacular home on Open Sky Way in prestigious gated High Forest Ranch, gorgeous multi-generational type home with amazing views, priced just under 2.2 million and a couple of great lots. And also coming soon next week are some amazing properties. So to find out about our sneak peek coming soon homes, go to barbhasthebuyers.com or give us a call at 719-301-3900. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice. It airs every Saturday. If you're thinking of making a move, call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. Remember, you can see replays of the show on YouTube, Barb's YouTube channel. Search there, or on all of the popular podcast platforms. Look for Barb there on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio. Thanks for listening this week. To reach out to Barb, again, that number is 719-301-3900. Thanks for listening. Look forward to talking to you next week, Barb.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Sorry, tickling my throat was like there forever. Okay. What are the pros and cons of living with extended family members? Inspections, backup offers. I like the first one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't talked about that before.
I know. And you know what? I'm going to bring you on my show. I say that, but let's plan on you coming on my show sometime soon to talk about that exactly, because I knew it was a big deal. I didn't know until talking to you that almost 20% of homes are a situation like that. That's a big
Quite a
deal.
few.
All right, hang on. The headphones are off. 3, 2, 1. Whoops, wrong one. Oh gosh. That'll work a little bit better. 3, 2, 1. Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, airs every Saturday from 11 until noon, right after Cudlow, here on 740 KVOR. This weekend, Barb's going to be talking about the pros and cons of living with extended family members in your home. That'll work.
Okay, I think we got it.
You got
Thank
it, Barb.
you guys.
We'll
Have a
talk to
great
you
week.
soon. And I'll reach out to you, but don't be, shy about reaching out to me and saying, hey, Richard, you wanted to talk about, multi-generational homes. When is a good time? And I'll try to, keep a reminder for myself to make sure that we get that in pretty sometime next couple of weeks is what I'd like to do.
Okay, sure.
You got it. All right.
Great.
You take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.